My mother died on a Thursday. It was raining in Phoenix, the kind of quiet, miserable rain that feels more personal than weather. I stood alone in her hospital room, holding her hand long after the machines had gone still, because letting go felt like betrayal. And Claire wasn't there. She was in Sedona. With her old college roommate, Sarah. A spontaneous girls' weekend she booked 2 weeks ago, even after I begged her to stay close because Mom's health was declining fast. "I just need air, Ryan," she said. "And you said it yourself, your mom would want you to be strong." I told myself she was right. That I was being needy. So I let her go. I called her the moment Mom passed. She didn't pick up. I left a voicemail through tears. She didn't call back for hours. By the time she returned, I was in the kitchen, staring blankly at a sink full of dishes Mom would have hated to leave behind. "I'm sorry," Claire said, voice flat. "I'll be home by Sunday. I'll help with the arrangements." That was all. "No, how are you?" "No, do you want me to come now?" "Just Sunday." The funeral was on Monday. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. Grief robs you of energy for confrontation. I just nodded into the silence, told her I loved her, and went back to making phone calls and picking out caskets I couldn't afford. Mom would have wanted simple. I gave her lilies and a rented church space and a playlist of old Patsy Cline songs she used to hum while folding laundry. Claire arrived 15 minutes before the service. Freshly blow-dried hair, new black heels, a necklace I'd never seen before. She hugged me like I was someone else's husband. "I'm here," she whispered, as if her presence cancelled out her absence. And then, she vanished again. Midway through the reception, while I was speaking with the pastor, she slipped outside. I didn't even notice. It wasn't until later, when my friend Dean, a hobbyist drone photographer who'd offered to capture some overhead shots of the funeral for my scrapbook, sent me a message. "Hey man, do you want me to clean up any of these? Some aren't very flattering angles." I opened the folder on my phone. Grayscale. Wide shots of the church parking lot. The flower tent. The coffin from above, casting a long black shadow. And then one image stopped me cold. Far off to the right, near the trees behind the chapel, zoomed in just enough to make out the shape. Claire. Standing face to face with a man in a navy suit. His hand was on her waist. Her hand was on his chest. And their foreheads were touching. I stared at the photo until my vision blurred. At first, I told myself it couldn't be what it looked like. A trick of angles. A weird lighting effect. A moment frozen mid-conversation that just happened to look intimate. But the longer I looked, the clearer it became. Her body was leaning in. His hand wasn't casual, it was possessive. And her eyes, even in grayscale, even pixelated, were closed. I zoomed in further. Behind them, the church steeple stood tall, like some silent witness. A black car nearby. No one else around. Just two people, inches from each other, during my mother's funeral. I felt something cold break open inside my chest. I didn't reply to Dean. I didn't call Claire. I just sat there, in my suit, in the dark corner of the reception hall, scrolling through photos of my mother's casket, and the woman I loved turning her back on everything we were. At home, I didn't sleep. I just watched Claire from across the bedroom like she was a stranger who somehow knew my name. She kept asking what was wrong. "Nothing," I said. "Because how do you bring up something like that?" "Hey, I found a drone photo of you emotionally cuddling a stranger behind my mom's casket, mind explaining that?" I waited 2 days. I needed to be sure. Dean was a tech guy, a detail freak. I called him the next morning and asked if he could enhance the image. He hesitated. "Ryan, I didn't mean for you to look through those during the service. It was supposed to be. Can you clean it up or not?" He said yes. Said he'd send it that afternoon. When the edited photo arrived, there was no more doubt. It was Claire. And the man was someone I recognized, vaguely. Tall. Strong jaw. Navy suit. I'd seen him before. At one of Claire's office Christmas parties. His name was Derek. He worked in accounting. She'd mentioned him a few times. Said he was annoying. Said he drank too much. Said he had a girlfriend who was clingy. I remembered because she laughed when she said it. That offhand tone people use when they're too casual to be telling the truth. I pulled up her Instagram. Nothing recent. Then I checked her Venmo. A payment 3 days ago. Wine and views, sent to @DerekMiles. My hands went numb. That was the day she was in Sedona. The day she told me she just needed clarity and space. And I was alone in a hospital watching my mother die. I closed the app. Sat back. And listened to the dull hum of our refrigerator, a sound I suddenly couldn't stand. I looked around the kitchen. Her favorite mug. Her phone charger. Her jacket over the chair. Everything felt like evidence. That night, I pulled out the old photo album Mom gave me years ago, the one she filled with baby pictures, school awards, family barbecues. I flipped to the page where she taped in a quote. In the end, it's not what you carry that breaks you, it's what you carry alone. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the pages go wet. Because Mom had been right. And I was finally ready to stop carrying it. The next morning, I made eggs. Claire wandered into the kitchen wearing my old hoodie like it was still hers to wear. "You're quiet," she said, pouring coffee. "Still thinking about your mom?" I watched the yolk break in the pan. "Yeah. Among other things." She didn't push. Just sipped her drink and scrolled her phone like we weren't both standing in the middle of a quiet war. I didn't sleep the night before. I kept rehearsing how to ask, how to accuse without begging. But grief makes everything messy. It mixes sadness with rage, numbness with clarity. I didn't want a fight. I wanted the truth. And I already had enough of it to know what I'd seen wasn't a hallucination. So I said, calmly, "How was Sedona?" She didn't look up. "Relaxing. Needed the break." "With Sarah?" "Yeah." A pause. "Why?" I flipped the eggs, careful not to burn them. "Just wondering. You didn't post anything. No photos." She gave a soft laugh. "Wow. Didn't realize I needed to post proof of my girl's weekend. Did you take any, though?" She stiffened slightly, the way people do when their brain starts racing faster than their mouth. "Not really. We were unplugged. Wine, hikes, spas. It was low-key." I nodded slowly. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I'd already buried my mother. There wasn't much left to tear. Later that day, I went out for a drive, just me, the freeway, and the photo. I pulled off at a gas station and called Derek. He didn't answer. I didn't expect him to. But I left a message anyway. "Hey, Derek. This is Ryan. Claire's husband. I've got a drone photo of you and my wife during my mother's funeral. Don't worry, I'm not coming to fight you. I just want to confirm what I already know. Maybe you'll do the decent thing and tell the truth." I hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Claire. "Why did you call Derek?" Her voice was sharp. Wound tight. I didn't answer. "Ryan. Answer me." Still nothing. "I swear to God, if you're starting something right now." "You lied," I said quietly. "You weren't in Sedona with Sarah. You were with him. And you left my mother's funeral to sneak off behind the church with him." Silence. "Then, who showed you that?" You want to talk about who? What does it matter, Claire? She said nothing. Just, nothing. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. But the apology never came. Only a long, breathless pause. Then a soft, flat, "I didn't think you'd find out." It landed like a slap. I pulled into the shoulder and parked the car, staring out at the horizon like it held some kind of answer. "You didn't think I'd find out," I repeated. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I really am. I didn't know how to deal with all of it. The grief. Us. Everything felt wrong. I didn't plan for it to happen like this." "You're right," I said, voice cracking. "You didn't plan. You chose." Another long pause. "I'll pack my things." I laughed once, dry and bitter. "Don't bother. You already took the important stuff." I hung up. Then I sat there, in the car, in the middle of nowhere, letting the last piece of my marriage rot quietly under the Arizona sun. Claire didn't come home that night. Her side of the closet was empty by morning. She must have come while I was out driving, or maybe after I finally passed out on the couch with an untouched glass of bourbon sweating on the coffee table. Either way, she was gone, clean, quiet, like a ghost who'd only been haunting the place out of habit. No note. No apology. Just a missing wedding band and the faint scent of her shampoo in the pillowcase. I didn't chase her. I made coffee. Fed the dog. Watered Mom's orchids that I'd inherited from her kitchen windowsill, though I had no idea how to keep them alive. Everything felt muted. Like grief had turned down the color on the world. I went to work that week, but I wasn't really there. My hands went through the motions, answering emails, signing off invoices, fixing a jammed printer like it mattered. I was a man-shaped shell filled with echoes. It wasn't just the cheating. It was where she did it. When she did it. At the funeral of the only woman who'd ever truly loved me unconditionally. Mom raised me alone. Dad left before I had memories of him. It was just us. And Claire knew that. She knew how much Mom meant to me, and she still chose that day, of all days, to sneak off and touch foreheads with another man behind the trees like they were in a Nicholas Sparks novel. Dean texted again 2 days later. "You good, man? I've been thinking about that photo. I'm sorry if it made things worse." I replied. "It didn't make things worse. It made them true." He sent back a sad emoji. The most human thing we'd exchanged in days. That night, I pulled out an old box Mom had given me the Christmas before she passed. She called it, "my legacy junk." Inside were Polaroids from her first apartment, recipes in her handwriting, a note in an envelope that said, "Read this when I'm gone, and only if you're lost." I was. So I opened it. "Ryan. If you're reading this, it means I'm not there. And if I'm not there, it means life probably punched you somewhere soft and didn't say sorry. So here's what I know. You are good. Even when others aren't. You are kind. Even when life is cruel. And you love with your whole damn heart, even when it's broken. Don't let anyone take that from you. You're not the man your father was. You're the man I raised. Love. Mom." I read it twice. Then I set it on the table next to my coffee and sat in silence until the sky turned purple outside the window. It was the first time I cried since the funeral. Not for Claire. Not for the marriage. But for the version of myself I thought I'd lost, the son my mother believed in. Because maybe I wasn't broken. Maybe I was just bruised. And bruises heal. Something shifted in me after that letter. Not all at once. Not like some movie montage where I shave the beard, repaint the living room, and start dating again. No. It was quieter than that. It started with clearing out the closet. I boxed up what Claire left behind, the sweaters, the shoes, the makeup bag with the cracked zipper she never fixed. I didn't toss it. Just stored it in the garage, next to a half-assembled crib we never got to use. Funny how the body remembers grief, even after the shock fades. I'd wake up some mornings thinking she was in the kitchen, frying eggs like she used to. Then I'd walk down and find only silence, broken by the hum of the fridge and the whisper of wind through the trees outside. But silence stopped feeling so cruel. It started to feel like space. Breathing room. I began going on walks. Long ones. No headphones. Just me and the pavement. I'd pass by old couples and wonder what it felt like to have 50 years with someone who never walked away. I didn't envy them. I respected them, like veterans of a war I hadn't survived. Claire texted me once, about 2 weeks after she left. "I'm sorry. I know it doesn't help. I just wanted to say it." I didn't reply. There wasn't malice in my silence. Just, nothing left to give her. She'd already taken the best parts of me and handed them to someone who didn't even bother to show up with a backbone. Derek never called. Never texted. Never apologized. I imagined they deserved each other. But I had something they didn't. I had my mother's words. And something else too, the drone photo. It sat in a folder on my desktop, untouched since the day I confronted Claire. I opened it again one night, not to torture myself, but to look at it differently. There she was. Same moment. Same betrayal. But in the foreground now, I noticed something I hadn't before. Me. Standing near the casket, my head bowed, hand gripping the side like I was anchoring myself to the only solid thing left. I looked, strong. Not defeated. Not broken. Just still. Like I was holding everything together by sheer force of will. And I realized something. That man, that version of me, deserved better. He deserved peace. He deserved love that didn't come with asterisks. He deserved to be seen, really seen, not just tolerated. So I started rebuilding. I called Dean and asked him to help me clean out Mom's attic. I planted sunflowers in her backyard garden, the ones she loved but never had time for. I pulled the covers off her old record player, fixed the needle, and played Patsy Cline on Sunday mornings while the house filled with the smell of fresh coffee and quiet joy. Piece by piece, I reclaimed what I'd lost. Not Claire. Myself. It was early October when Dean and I finally hauled the last box out of Mom's attic. Dusty Christmas ornaments. High school yearbooks. A faded box labeled "Ryan's College Crap, Do Not Throw." We laughed about it, sitting in the garage, two guys surrounded by decades of someone else's memories. "You doing okay?" Dean asked, not for the first time. "I think so," I said. "I'm not trying to fix anything anymore. Just trying to live inside it." He nodded like he understood. And he did. He was the only one who'd seen that photo, the one that broke the illusion I'd been trying to preserve for months. That night, I built a fire in the backyard pit Mom and I had used every Thanksgiving. Just me, a bottle of decent bourbon, and a pile of papers I didn't need anymore. Claire's text messages. Old anniversary cards she gave me, hollow now in hindsight. The ultrasound photo she'd framed and left in the nursery we never finished. And last, the printed copy of the drone photo. I held it for a while. Not in anger. Not in pain. Just reflection. The man in the photo, the one gripping the coffin, trying to hold himself together while his wife was wrapped up in another man, that wasn't a weak man. That was a man who endured. A man who buried his mother, lost his marriage, and still stood. I tossed the photo into the flames. It curled quickly, edges turning black before vanishing into orange. As it burned, I felt no vengeance. No surge of power. Just release. Claire never showed up again. I heard through someone that she moved to Flagstaff with Derek. That she left her job. That she dyed her hair and started teaching yoga. None of it mattered. Because I wasn't watching her life anymore. I was living mine. I started going back to the community garage where I used to volunteer with teens, showing them how to work on engines, fix their own brakes, understand the guts of something real. One night, one of the kids asked, "What's the first thing you ever built?" Without thinking, I said, "Trust." The word surprised even me. He blinked. Was it fast? No, I said, smiling. But it lasted. The next weekend, I took my mom's old Camry out to the edge of the desert, the place she used to take me stargazing when I was a kid. I brought a blanket, a thermos of coffee, and sat on the hood under a sky so big it made my problems feel like grains of sand. For the first time in months, I didn't think about Claire. Or Derek. Or the casket. I thought about future things. Maybe not love, not yet. But peace. Stillness. The kind you only earn after walking through fire. 6 months later, I framed a photo. Not the one from the drone. That one was ash, gone like the version of me that needed it. This photo was older, faded at the corners, slightly out of focus. It was me and my mom, covered in grease, standing beside the first car we ever restored together. She was holding up a wrench like it was a trophy, and I was laughing like I'd just found gold in the junkyard. I hung it in my hallway. Right where the wedding photo used to be. Not as revenge. Not to make a point. But because that was a memory built on something real. Claire's absence became a kind of stillness in my life, a silence that I stopped filling with what-ifs. People asked about the divorce. I kept my answers short. I didn't owe the world my pain in exchange for its pity. And besides, I didn't hate her anymore. I know that sounds strange. But hate requires energy. It's a fire you feed. And I'd already burned everything that needed burning. Forgiveness wasn't about her. It was the oxygen I needed to breathe again. One afternoon in early spring, Megan, Claire's mom, reached out. She asked if she could drop off some things Claire had left behind. I said yes. When she arrived, she didn't say much. Just handed me a small cardboard box and looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't quite get it out. I opened the box after she left. Inside was the necklace Claire wore to the funeral. The one I'd never seen before that day. Wrapped around it was a note in her handwriting. For what it's worth, I regret it. I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to be who you needed. I folded the note, put the necklace in a drawer, and left it there. Some things aren't meant to be repaired. That weekend, I took Mom's Camry to a local show and shine event, nothing fancy, just a gathering of people who loved what they'd built with their hands. One of the guys there brought his teenage daughter. She asked if I could teach her how to change oil. Sure, I said. Bring gloves. As I showed her how to find the drain plug, she asked me, "Did you build this car?" I paused. Looked down at the grime under my nails, the sun fading the hood, the history in every bolt. No, I said. But I rebuilt it. She nodded, not understanding the weight of those words. But I did. Because somewhere along the way, I'd rebuilt more than a car. I'd rebuilt me. Not the man Claire married. Not the man she left. But the man my mother always believed I was capable of becoming. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.